Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. My name is Brianna and this is For Pause in a Book. I make book and lifestyle related content, so if that's something that you're interested in, hit that subscribe button down below. Today I have an unhaul for you. So I unhaul books pretty regularly, specifically ones that I have already read. If I've read it and I'm not giving it more than 3.5 stars, I don't usually keep it. But I have a ton of books to unhaul, so I thought I would do a video, and I think this is what I'm going to do, is do basically quarterly unhaul videos. I will still have stuff up on Pango in other times of the year, but every quarter I'm going to go through my shelves and really take stock of what I have. And if I'm going to read them, let's be honest, my reading tastes change so much over the years that what I thought was a favorite book, or a book that I was really excited about, I'm no longer excited about. Which is why I do things like my Unhaul Project series and the 23 to read in 23 and the self-destruct list. Those are things that really force me to be real about the books that are on my shelves. I have a lot of books that I own, and let's be honest, I'm not going to read all of them. So, at least these quarterly unhauls that allow me to take stock of what I'm actually not really interested in anymore. So I have 38 books that I am unhauling today. Should have counted that before I sat down and made it an even 40, but that's okay. 90% of these books will be on Pango. I am giving my patrons early access to this, so if it's not on Pango, it may have already been sold, but 90% of this will be on Pango, unless it's just not in good enough condition, and then I'll just drop it off at the little free library that's up the street from me. But let's just rip off the band-aid that probably hurts the most. Let's just do that one first. I'm gonna unhaul Cassandra Clare. Here's the thing. I read Chain of Gold in January? Earlier this year. In preparation for Chain of Thorns coming out. I started reading Chain of Thorns. Let me backtrack. I gave Chain of Gold 3 stars. It's entirely too long. It needed an editor, and because I wasn't such a big, I'm not a huge fan of Shadowhunters. I'm not I wasn't reading them upon release as a teenager. I don't have the emotional connection that a lot of people have with them. So I started reading Chain of Iron, and I was just so bored. And then I heard the way that Chain of Thorns ends, and I just didn't care. And it really kind of just turned me off from the rest of these. I don't feel too bad because I have bought these all secondhand. So I've already sold the last hours, but I did get rid of both of those. So I guess I can hold all these up together. This is the original 6 Mortal Instruments. Then the 3 for Dark Artifices. The whatever this is, Eldest Curses. And then the 3 Infernal Devices. I did read these and I enjoyed these, but I'm not gonna just keep this trilogy on my shelf. So it just makes more sense to post them on Pango and let somebody else enjoy them. Okay, I'll do this by genre and we'll continue with fantasy since we're already here. First up, Graceling by Christian Kishore. This was in my Unhaul project and I didn't read it in the time frame that I needed to read it before I was going to unhaul it. So that's gonna get rid of. Six of Crows by Lee Bardugo. The only reason I'm getting rid of this is because I'm moving them over to hardcover. So if you notice, I have hardcovers for half of them and then paperbacks for the other. So as I find them in thrift stores or on Pango for cheap, whatever, I'm just replacing them. I've replaced Six of Crows, so I'm gonna get rid of the paperback. And then Dark Metropolis by Jack and Dolomar. This I've had forever. This is a book that I got at a thrift store when I first started my channel. And every time I read the back, I'm this sounds really interesting. It's this dystopian, chosen one kind of thing. But then I'm wait a minute, this is a YA dystopian that was written in 2014. It's not gonna be good. So I'm finally gonna get rid of it. Okay, then Who Fears Death by Nadia Korafor. I actually started reading this and ended up DNFing it. The audiobook is on Scribd if I ever want to go back to it, but this book is really, really hard and really dark. And 100 pages in, we haven't really done anything, and it just kept talking about assault of women, and I just wasn't in the headspace for it. It's also a mass market paperback, so it's not a book that I want to keep on my shelf. Regardless of if I would have read and loved it, I still would have gotten rid of this. But it's just not really a book that fit me right now. And then We Could Be Heroes by Mike Chen. This is a book that I purchased for like an Avengers boss battle or an Avengers like board that I thought it would work for. But I've just decided that superhero stories are not really anything that I like. And this is about like, I think like sidekicks of superheroes, something like that. And then Red Rising by Pierce Brown. I did read this last year and then thought like I would continue on and haven't yet. Like I really have no desire to continue on with this series. This was a fine book, but it's not a series that I'm like really dying to continue on with. Docile is another book that I DNF'd this month. This book is weird because like part of me was really enjoying it, but then part of it is like romanticizing kidnapping and like Stockholm syndrome, and it was weird, and like there's a lot of conversation about consent because you're like basically like selling yourself as an indentured slave to pay off your parents' debts. This book has a lot of conversations about racism that it probably shouldn't be having because it's a white person that wrote it. And so there were just some like very mixed, very like harsh reviews about this book, and I didn't want to enter that conversation, so I DNF'd it. Everyone's an Alien 1, You're an Alien 2 is a cute little like graphic novel that like is very minimalist style. I read this back in February. It was cute. I gave it 3 stars. It's not a book that I want to keep. Goliath by Tochi Onnobuchi. I read this one for Tour.comathon, and it was fine, but it's very much like a science fiction literary fiction crossover, and that's not necessarily like my cup of tea. This has great reviews on Goodreads, and I definitely think that it was just a me book, a not for me book, rather than like the book itself was bad. It did tackle a lot of conversations, and I liked the end of the book, but the first half I was really lost and just kind of bored. So the book was fine, but I'm not going to reread it, and it's not a book that I need on my shelves because it's not necessarily a book that I'm going to recommend and like hold up in videos and things. The Echo Wife by Sarah Gailey. I also read this one this month, and the book was fine. Like I'm gonna be honest, I was really bored pretty much the entire time I was reading this. I think the concept is really interesting about this man who like creates a clone of his wife to like fix all of the things that he doesn't like in his wife, and then like something happens and like the two, like the wife and the clone, end up working together. The concept was really good, but I was bored. So I only gave it 2.5 stars. Then Into the Mist by PC Cast, another book that I read this month and really didn't like. This is like a climate fiction type of book where this nuclear mist kind of like goes across the Pacific Northwest, I think, kills men and gives women superpowers. But there's no conversation about gender versus biological sex and like what happens to non-binary people, what happens to trans people. Like in this author's mind, trans people don't exist. And that was weird. So I actually actively hated this book. But it's a pretty cover. You know, maybe someone else will like it. Alright, a couple of contemporaries. The Boy in the Black Suit by Jason Reynolds. I did read this one last month and didn't really love it. Again, more of a me book than, or not for me book. This is very much a like YA lit fic. And I was just waiting for something to happen the entire time, and it really was just more slice of life. And then Tomorrow. This is actually the like book of the month, book of the year, and I had high hopes for this book, but I've heard such mid things from people that I have very close ratings to, and so I am not excited to read this book. So I will pass it along to someone who is excited. A couple of thriller and horror books. I'm getting rid of the Inheritance Games trilogy. I really liked the Inheritance Games. I read this one early last year and then really hated this one, and then this one was just boring. It's not a book that I'm going to reread, or it's not a series that I'm going to reread. I think that if you like the romance in this, you will like these 2 books, because that is all that this is. But I was just here for the mystery and the like thriller and the like puzzle, and like it never, I don't know, like it was, the resolution was just kind of anticlimactic for like a buildup of 3 books. This book very much gave me Westing Game vibes, and so I really liked it, and these ones let me down. So, again, not a series that I'm going to reread, so I don't need them on my shelf. They're taking up a lot of shelf space. Okay, and then I have a couple of books on here that are on my, like, self-destruct list, and I'm just going to, like, prematurely self-destruct them. Because I'm not going to pick them up. Let's be honest. The Game by Lindsay Miller. This doesn't have an audiobook. And I'm not going to physically sit here and read a book about high schoolers doing high school drama things. I don't care at all. And then Saw Kill Girls by Claire Legrand. This is on Hoopla if I want it. I think it's also on maybe Kindle Unlimited if I wanted to get it. I would rather just let somebody else that is going to enjoy it and is going to love it pick it up. There are so many spooky books that I want to read this fall. And I'm sure that I will get more by the time spooky season comes around. That book is not one that I'm necessarily excited about. Okay, and then a couple of Book of the Month thrillers. Razor Blade Tears by S.A. Cosby. I know I've heard a ton of good things about this, but I've also heard a lot of really dark and depressing things, and I just don't want to read that. I don't think that this is a me book at all. So we're just going to let it go. And then Too Good to Be True by Carola Levering. This is a domestic thriller about a man who has a second family or something like that. I don't know. Derek's mom has this book. If I really wanted it, because she does Book of the Month too. If I really, really want to read it one day, I can borrow her copy. And then lastly, a few romance books. This is another book that's on my self-destruct list. This is Good and Bad by Jennifer Weiner. I think that this is going to have some conversation about fat phobia in the workplace, specifically in the fashion industry. But it was written in 2001, so I don't have a lot of hope for it at all. So I'm just going to prematurely self-destruct it. And then Natalie Tan's A Book of Luck and Fortune. I feel like this book is definitely less romance and more coming of age, and not coming of age, but family story. I think this book is mostly about her having to care for her mother and her family business and stuff. So I think that the romance is very much a subplot. And if history has shown, I don't like those books. So we're just gonna let it go. Someone else will love it. You Lucky Dog by Julia London. This is I think a closed door romance about two dogs that get swapped at doggy daycare, which honestly is just a nightmare waiting to happen. If someone were to kidnap my dog or accidentally swap my dog with another dog, I wouldn't fall in love with him, that's for sure. I would probably unalive him, if we're being honest. So, that's not realistic, and it would just piss me off anyways. And then two romances that I did read. Fake It Till You Bake It by Jamie Wesley. This was a 3-star read for me. It was fine, but I think that the sex scenes were kind of cringy, and it's not a book that I'm going to reread or a book that I'm really going to recommend. And then lastly, If the Shoe Fits by Julie Murphy. I actually really liked this book. This is a 4.5-star book, but I hate that it's not the same size as romance books. Why? And because I have a specific shelf of romances, this actually doesn't fit on said shelf. So, I'm not going to keep it physically. Unless they came out in a normal size paperback. But anyways, those are the books that I'm unhauling. I might have a few more that end up on Pango that I find after I film. I don't know. That is all I have for you today. I will leave my Pango shop down below. I'm doing a 10% off sale from the time that this video goes live for a week. And there's not a code or anything. It's just a sale on my site. So if you're watching this right away, then you can take advantage of that 10% off sale. Unfortunately, Pango is only in the US right now, so that's unfortunate. But if you are in the US and you are interested in any of these books, hopefully they are still there for you. That is all I have for you today. If you're new here and you have not yet subscribed, there's a little red button you can do so down below the video. If you'd like to hang out with me more, the links to my Instagram, Goodreads, Twitter, and my Patreon are linked in the description below. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.